Welcome back to Sports the Nemo Way, episode number 19. Alex here to introduce Russell Westbrook, who will be defended by Uncle Doug and Wade, who have him ranked 46th and 44th, very similarly. But before I turn it over to those two, in their opening statements, let's cover his career real quick. The 6'3", 200-pound point guard who has played for the Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, and currently the Washington Wizards. He is a zero-time champ, one-time MVP, nine-time All-Star, nine-time All-NBA. He's a two-time scoring champ with career averages of 23, 7, and 8 on 43% shooting. And now I'm going to kick it to Uncle Doug. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, Russell's one of the current players that's on my list. He was like my number 9 point guard. Usually my number 10 were old guys. So Russell's somebody that I've watched for a long time since he played at UCLA and then on to Oklahoma City. One of the things that really impressed me was his triple-double season. He was the first one to do that since Oscar Robertson. And what I didn't realize till I dug into it, because they made such a big deal about when he did it in 2016-17, that he also did it in the 2 following years. So he averaged a triple-double for 3 seasons. Russell, like as Alex says, 2-time scoring champ, 2-time assist champ as well. Made the all-rookie team. As far as points, his peak point season was 31.6. His average of 23.2 is 26th all-time, and he is 42nd on the all-time scoring list. Rebound-wise, he is 232nd and 154th all-time. 232nd is his average. But on assists, his average assists of 8.4 is 10th best average, and all-time he's number 13 on the assist list. I've compared Russell to guys like Gary Payton, Steve Nash, Isaiah Thomas. Payton and Nash both had longer careers than Russell has played so far. Russell has played 900 and some games at this point, with Payton playing 1,300 and Steve Nash playing 1,200. Isaiah Thomas surprisingly only played 979. I actually thought Isaiah had played more games than that.
I would have thought that as well.
So I was kind of surprised there. Actually, when you start looking at their assists, his 8.4 is almost exactly on Steve Nash's 8.5. Payton has 6.7, and Isaiah is the best of the 4 at 9.3. Rebounding-wise, he's way ahead of all the rest of those guys. He's at 7.2. Payton's 3.9. Nash is 3. 3.6 for Isaiah. Steals, they're all pretty similar. 1.7, 1.8. Nash is down to 0.7, which kind of surprised me. And Isaiah's at 1.9. Blocks, virtually none. But Russell is the highest scorer of the 4 at 23.2, with Payton averaging 16, Nash averaging 14, and Isaiah 19. Now, Isaiah Thomas and Steve Nash, Gary Payton didn't make my list. Isaiah Thomas did, and as did Nash. But I felt like what Russell's done with all the triple-doubles, especially with the 3 seasons, I wanted to put him in on the list. We'll see where he goes with the rest of his career. As we've seen in the past, oftentimes you go up on the all-time, but your averages go down. We'll see how long he hangs around and what effect that has on that. I did also note that he had 57 games where he scored 40-plus and 6 games where he's hit 50. He also has the most triple-doubles in a season at 42. So, who you got, Wade?
Well, I'm just going to kind of break down my thought process of why I chose Russell Westbrook. To be completely honest, Alex can probably vouch for this. I actually don't really like Russell Westbrook, to be completely honest. I talk shit about him all the time. He's quite aggravating at times. I'm a huge Kevin Durant fan, so when they were together, I used to get quite irritated with Russell Westbrook. But at the end of everyone's list, like I think we've discussed before, it's usually the really great stats, no championship people for the most part, with a few exceptions. And as far as stats go, Russell Westbrook's going to pretty much beat everybody. Now there are some reasons behind that. Like we all know the usage rate, the era that he plays in, but yeah, but there's also other great players that play in the same era as him that didn't do what he's done. He's averaged a triple double 3 times. It's only ever been done once. He's done it 3. There are other players that stat hunt, just like Russell Westbrook. They still don't average triple doubles. He's done it 3 times. So pretty much, if you want to go with someone who hasn't won a championship, but put up great stats, was a great player for a long time, I think you can make an argument for Russell Westbrook against pretty much anyone at the bottom of your list, I believe. So I'll leave it there, and then we'll go around the room.
All right. Well, first off, I just want to say it's rare for us to have a player on here that all of us watch their entire career. So I'm actually interested to hear about this because not just for Drew, but for myself included. Like, I find myself with guys like Westbrook, or when we have the Kawhi episode, or upcoming we have the Harden episode. I really, really nitpick at things because I saw it all. Like, I'm like, oh no, that happened. Well, other guys, even when I was a kid, still watched them. I saw them do these things. I don't remember like certain things or whatever. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but per usual, I'm kick it to Drew. See what Drew's got to say about Russell Westbrook and why he's not on your list.
Well, like Alex said, I've watched Russell Westbrook for most. Maybe at the very beginning, I didn't remember all of it, but I remember most of it, especially there when him and Durant and Harden started making those playoff runs, and everyone went crazy and went everywhere. I don't know. I just feel like Westbrook's stat hunts. Like for those triple double seasons, there was times where Steven Adams would like box people out, and he would clear the lane for Westbrook just to grab the rebounds. It's not like he was, I don't know, boxing people out. He was just kind of giving rebounds and stuff, but all that stuff. And then who else was on the team? Did they make the playoffs over the years? Was it just stat hunting and that kind of stuff? It's my first take, really, before we get going.
All right. Well, Ray, you got anything to add?
Yeah. At some point, if you're just going to be the record book, that's fine. But, there's other players that have the stats and actually compete in the game and actually won a title. Westbrook, I don't know what his deal is, but I think all he wants to do is have his name on a plaque. And not the good plaque, which everyone else wants. Just a plaque that, you can call up your girlfriend and be like, hey, girl, I got this assist champ. But nobody's, that's cool, the first couple times. But then there's got to be a point where when you get it like the 6th or 7th time, it's not impressive anymore because you're going to have a turnaround and you're going to have to put something with it. Like some, championship titles.
All right. Well, as Wade said, as he doesn't like Russell Westbrook, I don't like Russell Westbrook either. And I personally thought that even though I've soured on Durant recently, I did think that Russell Westbrook really held Durant back in OKC for some reasons. But that's another thing that I don't really have written down over here on my take, but Westbrook seems to, for whatever reason, not be able to coexist with other stars. Him and Durant did have a 6-year run together and did not so well. And then Paul George, and James Harden, and now Bradley Beal. He's played with plenty of guys. They just don't seem to stick around very long and, like playing with Russ. Do either one of you guys want to respond to those guys before I get into my stuff? Because I'm a little more long-winded than they're going to be.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, first off, I do want to say that Westbrook stacks up against anyone you can bring up statistically. But that being said, I do think you have to look more closely to tell the real Westbrook story. Um, first of all, Westbrook is second all time in usage rate. In his MVP season, 16-17, he has the highest usage rate in the history of basketball, 41.65. To put that into context for everybody, right now the story right now in the NBA is Trae Young's a ball hog, and he doesn't get his teammates involved enough. His usage rate this season is 32, so almost 10. No, so 9 percentage points below what his was that season. But again, that's just part of the story. If I were to say Russell Westbrook to a basketball fan, I think most basketball fans immediately think triple-double, kind of like what Uncle Doug said, which is fair. He averaged triple-double for 3 straight seasons. But I'd like to look a little deeper at that. Russell Westbrook is not just a stat hunter. He's stat obsessed. He would hunt assists for series of possessions because he was an assist short of his triple-double. Instead of doing what was right for the team, he would sit there and try and get assists, possession after possession after possession. Also, he would come back into blowouts late in the fourth quarter because he didn't have his triple-double yet and play in these big blowouts so that he could get his triple-double and then leave the game again. But it's come out very publicly, and Drew kind of touched on it earlier, that they asked the big man in OKC to box out and let Russell Westbrook have rebounds so he could get triple-doubles. They would also pull big men out of free throw sets and insert Russell Westbrook, a 6'3" point guard, so that he could get rebounds if he wasn't getting enough rebounds during the game, just so he could get his triple-doubles. So I guess what I'm saying there is, at least partially, his triple-doubles are a farce. But let's get away from the triple-double talk for a minute and just talk about Westbrook's general game and what issues I have with it. First off, he is a volume shooter, but we all know guys that are volume shooters. He's not the only one. Most of us have AI on our list, and he's a volume shooter. But the bigger problem is that Russell Westbrook is a very, very poor three-point shooter. But he insists on jacking them up like he's Ray Allen or Reggie Miller. I do believe he averages more three-pointers per game for his career than Ray Allen and Reggie Miller, which is ridiculous considering how bad he shoots. He's had seasons where he's shot in the 20s percents. But he continues to take them. So not only is he a volume shooter, he's a bad shot taker, which I do believe makes it hard for his team to win. It also came across like he was very jealous of Kevin Durant through big parts of his career. If Kevin Durant was hot and scoring a bunch, then he just would stop giving Durant the ball and shoot because he was jealous Durant was scoring too much. That's the way it appeared. That's an opinion, not a fact, obviously. The other problem is Westbrook turns the ball over at a rate we've never really seen before. And if he wasn't playing at the same time as James Harden, it would be an even bigger deal. Westbrook has 800 turnovers from being the all-time leader in turnovers. And you think 800, that's quite a lot of turnovers. Until I point out that a couple seasons ago, he had 438 in one season. So we could really see this quite quickly.
I was about to say, I just looked it up. This season, he's averaging like 4 turnovers a game.
His career is over 4 turnovers a game.
Right, his career turnover average is 4.1. But I will point out Isaiah Thomas is 3.8.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And his MVP season, it was 5.4.
That has something to do with him using the ball 41% of the time.
But the real kicker is, and partially has to do with something I mentioned a minute ago, was he accomplished this while playing second fiddle half the time. Normally, when you take a guy and make him or have him play with a superstar, their efficiency goes up. Their turnovers go down because they have the ball less. That doesn't work for Russell Westbrook. He played 6 seasons with Kevin Durant, 2 seasons with Paul George, a season with James Harden, and he's currently playing with Bradley Beal. All guys he was playing second fiddle to, and his efficiency doesn't go up. His turnovers don't go down. So I don't really know why that is, personally, but he does struggle with those things regardless. And the real kicker is it gets worse in the playoffs. He's a career 41% shooter in the playoffs, and 29% shooter from 3 in the playoffs, where his assists go down and his turnovers do not. So that's where I wanted to touch off with Russell Westbrook. Would either one of you Westbrookians like to retort?
You want to go?
Sure.
Okay.
I was looking at usage rate, and see if I can get it back up here. Sorry. I also looked up all time who has the highest usage rate in the NBA. It's Michael Jordan.
Yes, it does.
But Russ is number 2,
Mhm.
and followed by Kobe and Allen Iverson, who we also mentioned. So it's all guards that they do handle the ball a lot, and I will admit Russ likes to be the star. He likes to handle the ball.
He's got to be the center of attention wherever he's at. Well, that means he's number 2 on the team or whoever.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here going, this is blasphemy. You two shouldn't have him on your list. Because Russell Westbrook's statistics are out of control. Like, as far as the good stuff, like his rebound, his assist numbers, his scoring numbers, even. Although, like Uncle Doug said, some of them will probably go down because it does appear that he's currently on the downside of his career. He's not playing nearly as well as he was the last few years previous to the last couple. I just think he has some big spots on his game, and they really bother me.
I mean, I honestly agree with most of what you said. I mean, he aggravates the shit out of me when I watch him play, and he is not a good 3-point shooter to hit on that. But to kind of go more in depth about usage rate, like what Uncle Doug said, I mean, really, a lot of the greatest players of all time are in the top 20. I mean, most of them are on our list. I mean, Jordan, Kobe, Iverson, LeBron, D. Wade, Harden, Dominique, Durant, Gervin, Shaq. Shaq as a center is almost at 30. Carmelo, T-Mac, Anthony Davis. I mean, all on our list, all in the top 20 in usage rate, all just a point or two behind Russell Westbrook. Is he a ball hog? Absolutely. Absolutely. But he's still just doing things that other people haven't done. And a couple people that popped in my head just for comparisons. One, I mean, I have Jason Kidd ranked higher than Russell Westbrook, so I like Jason Kidd more. But Jason Kidd was known for being this all-around phenomenal point guard, for getting triple-doubles. Well, Russell Westbrook has like double the amount of triple-doubles as Jason Kidd. And Jason Kidd was also a terrible three-point shooter for like 80% of his career. Russell Westbrook also out-rebounds him, I think. Well, probably close, but I'll have to double-check that one. Their assists are probably close. J. Kidd might beat him by a smidge, and Russell Westbrook outscores him by probably a ton. Another person who kind of stat hunted, who Alex hit on, was Allen Iverson. Would shoot 35 times to get 30 points every night. He's, as far as I think, 21 on someone's list.
Is he that high?
I think Drew has him at 21.
You have AI at 21?
I'm not at 21.
I'm not trying to bash. I just took me by surprise.
Yes.
His career usage rate is right below Russell Westbrook. And he is less efficient than Russell Westbrook. And yes, you can say one's technically a shooting guard, one's a point guard. But Allen Iverson is a combo guard, pretty much just like Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook out-rebounds him by a mile, out-assists him. I mean, yeah, those are just things that popped in my head when I was comparing to other people.
Well, I can't really disagree with anything you just said there. Most of it was fact. But I would say the big difference between Westbrook and Kidd is that everybody in the league clamored to play with Jason Kidd, and nobody seems to want to play with Russell Westbrook.
No, I mean, I have Kidd higher than Westbrook. I mean, I love Jason Kidd. He was a phenomenal point guard. But the Westbrook thing, as far as teammates, to my understanding, he wanted to leave Harden. So he played a year with Harden,
It did appear that
and he
way.
left Harden. I don't think him and George didn't get along. George just had an opportunity to leave and go play with Kawhi, and it turned out that the Thunder were going to shopping both of them, and they both ended up leaving. The Durant thing did end nasty. They don't like each other. But the other ones I don't really think was that big a deal. I don't know about him and Bradley Beal. They seem okay, but the team sucks.
I don't know that I've heard anything about them not Beal and Westbrook not getting along at this point.
And him and Harden were apparently boys, but Westbrook didn't like playing with Harden, so he wanted to leave. And him and George, I've never heard anything bad about him and George personally. But then George got a chance to go play with Kawhi and went to the front office and hopped on it. But I don't know. I just thought we're at the bottom of the list here. So we're not comparing. Like, I'm not saying he's Magic Johnson or even Uncle Doug compared him to Isaiah Thomas. I have Isaiah Thomas ranked much higher than Russell Westbrook. But I don't know. He's done things that we've never seen before. I mean, unlike other current players that are really high on all of our lists, Durant, LeBron, Anthony Davis made a couple of our lists. Like, he's doing things in the same era as them that they haven't done. And most of the players I just named, we would also probably agree stat hunt. You tell me LeBron and Harden don't stat hunt?
No, they do.
They stat hunt,
Yeah.
and they still haven't achieved what Russell Westbrook has. So that's
They do. They stat hunt. I guess we're going to get into this now. I've been holding off a little bit. I also think a lot of this has to do with when they're playing. Triple doubles are everywhere. Luka Doncic is going to average triple double for 10 years.
Yeah.
Luka Doncic gets triple double every night.
Jokic now gets a lot.
Yeah, Jokic does it all the time. Harden and Embiid's got 3 or 4 already this season.
Yeah.
Which
it's kind of the
big. Sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, I kind of interrupted you. That's kind of just the way the NBA is now. Your star player is going to handle the ball and distribute or score, and that's just kind of how it goes. But, I mean, even younger Russell Westbrook before, he's been in the league, 10, 12 years?
12 years.
So
this is year 13.
I mean, before even the triple-doubles, he's putting up good all-around numbers. So, I mean, does he stat hunt rebounds? Yeah, I mean, he does. But was he a good rebounder before all this started? Absolutely. Was he a good passer? Not great. Was he decent? Younger? Yeah. I don't think he was a phenomenal passer by any means. I think he was decent when he was younger. Probably start up at 5, 6, 7 a game the first 5, 6 years of his career.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first 6 years of his career, he averaged right at 5 rebounds every year.
That's really good for a point guard, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And his assist numbers, he had a couple seasons of 5, a couple seasons of 7, and then he had a season of 8. There at the beginning of his career.
So he was pretty much my point is he was a great all around player before the triple double stuff even started, or before you could say he was stat hunting. And him and I think his biggest problem is he's not a 1. He's been tried to be made out as a 1 in certain spots. Well, mainly when Durant left, and he carried this really bad team, in my opinion.
Can I interrupt you just for a second?
Go for it.
Are you saying he's not a 1 as far as like the best player, a number 1? Or are you saying he's not a 1 as in a point guard?
I'm saying number 1 as in you're not going to win with him as your best player.
Okay, gotcha.
He's not a 1. That's just the fact. He's not a 1. And at certain times, I think he was asked to be a 1, and mainly in OKC when Durant left. Mm-hmm. And I think he was able to carry a bad roster to the playoffs, and they usually got spanked in the first round. Mm-hmm. He's not a 1. And then Paul George comes, and he pretty much had, in my opinion, 2 2s trying to battle it out.
And we know how Paul George is in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Playoff P.
Playoff disappear.
I'm just playing the Lillard bye-bye meme in my head right now.
So he needs to be a 2 to be effective. But I think at this point in his career, he's starting to, like you said, he's on the way down. We saw at the beginning of this year. The start of this year was really bad for Russell.
Yeah. So was the bubble.
Yeah. Well, he had COVID, right, like coming into the bubble, but that's nor here nor there. But now, I mean, it's probably too late for him, but he should have been his most success when he was a good non-ball hog, but he was the 2 for sure with Durant.
Right.
And they made it all the way to the NBA Finals. And if they weren't all like 22 years old, they might have had a lot better shot against Miami. And then he made a finals. And then Durant leaves. He becomes the number one. He makes the first round of the playoffs every year, but then they lose. He gets Paul George. They play 1 or 2 years together. Two. I think they lost in the first round every year anyway.
They did.
Yeah. But again, no other number one. He goes and plays with Harden. And then they make I think the second round of the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they lose.
Yeah, they lose in the second round. He is the number two there.
Awful.
Yeah, he was bricking everything.
But that I'm not trying to interrupt, but that is the other thing is you're talking about how he's a 2, which I agree with. He needs to be a number 2, but he doesn't have the game to necessarily be a number 2 because he doesn't have a skill to get him to score off ball because he can't spot up shoot, which is what normally a lot of off ball guys do. Obviously, he's not a post up player, being a point guard. So really, you're just asking him to stand around and slash every once in a while, which he's not. He's showed over his career he's really not interested in doing. He stands with his hands on his knees and shows up the team when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. So that's I think that's what makes it hard for him to be a number 2 option.
Well, I mean, you're right, but I think the biggest part of that is when he was younger with OKC. Was it Brooks, their coach, right?
Scott Brooks, yeah.
Brooks should have. I mean, it was Durant's team, but it was a constant fight between those two and whose team it was. The coach, in the early part of his career, should have stepped in, this is what we're going to do. Durant's the number 1. We'll figure out what to do with you. And he's still the point guard, so he's still going to have the ball. And then but that never happened, and then he stayed the same player throughout the rest of his. Well, then he became the number 1, and then by the time he goes to Houston, he's already 11 years in, and he's not going to change 11 years in. But you get what I'm saying? Early in his career, that should have been established by a coach that had a pair of balls, but Brooks didn't do that.
I mean, I agree with you. Or a number 1 that had a set of balls.
That too. But, I mean, him and Durant were both, 19 years old, trying to figure out how to play basketball together with James Harden there too. 19, well, maybe they're older than 19, maybe, but 20, 21.
Which leads us to one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history is what if the 3 of them would have stayed together?
I mean, they made a finals as a bunch of puppies. I mean, and they lost to the still probably out-talented veteran Miami Heat with LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh, and Battier and Mike Miller and all those guys.
I don't think there's any question that Miami Heat was more talented. Miami Heat team was more talented than them at that point in their careers. Harden was a bench player at that point.
He was 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wondered what would have happened if they had kept those 3 together and if OKC hadn't let it fall apart.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it came down to they had to choose between Harden and Ibaka, correct?
Yeah.
And they chose the big guy, which kind of made sense because you already had Durant and Westbrook. I don't think anyone knew what Harden was going to turn into. He goes to Houston, and then all of a sudden it's just, bam, 25, 6 and 6 in the first season he leaves.
Well,
but, yeah.
The other thing that hurts that situation is right after they made those moves, the NBA changed and went much smaller. Which then, maybe instead of giving Kendrick Perkins $60 million, you play Ibaka at the 5, Durant at the 4, another wing, whoever that player is, Cephalosha, Roberson, whoever it is at the time, and Harden and Westbrook. And then you fly up and down the floor. You still have a shot blocker in Ibaka. Westbrook and Durant and Harden are all good rebounders, so and you fit right into the current NBA, and you're probably the most talented team in the NBA. But they thought they still needed 2 bigs, and at that time, most teams still did play 2 bigs. I mean, they were having to try and go through Memphis every year that had Gasol and Randolph. And that time the Lakers had Gasol and Bynum and Odom, a bunch of bigs. Dwight Howard was the best big in the game at that point. There was a bunch of 2 big teams out there, and they decided to go that direction. And then just a couple short years later, nobody's playing 2 bigs anymore, and they paid Ibaka and Perkins, which makes them look really, really stupid now. But at the time, yeah, we were all like, man, I can't believe they're getting up Harden. But we weren't saying, why in the hell are they playing 2 big men?
Yeah. Yeah, it gets tricky in OKC after Durant leaves. They're I don't know. He took them to the playoffs, which was I think impressive because I don't think their roster was that good. They had a couple decent players, but one his usage rate of 41. The usage rate of 41 is pretty absurd. That probably should never happen. But at the same time, he's playing with, like you said, Kendrick Perkins, an old Kendrick Perkins that's broken down. Serge Ibaka, who's good. Trying to think what Jeremy Lamb and who are we forgetting here?
Hold on.
Nick Collison.
Was Oladipo there that year?
He might have been there. Was he like a rookie or second year player at that time?
No.
You don't think so?
No, Orlando drafted him and had him for 4 years. And then we traded him to OKC with Sabonis for Ibaka.
He's much older than I thought.
Yeah. And then he played OKC for 2 years.
He might have been there. But, I mean, young Oladipo, Ibaka, rundown Kendrick Perkins, Jeremy Lamb, Nick Collison, and Westbrook. So, I mean...
Can't forget about Aquaman.
Aquaman? Who's Aquaman?
Steven Adams.
He came there at the end of Westbrook. He was there for a couple of years at Westbrook, but he was there definitely for Paul George. I'm trying to think when he showed up. But I mean, Steven Adams is a good NBA center. But I mean, Alex just hit on a lot of teams don't even use big men at that point. And, I mean, right now he's literally a liability for the Pelicans, even though he's a good player.
He's a liability for the Pelicans, yes. But the reason he's a liability for the Pelicans is because their number 4, Zion Williamson, can't shoot. So if you can play a big man as long as you have a stretch 4.
Oh, it's a today's NBA thing, is what it is. I mean, that's pretty much what I was hitting on. Is you said the NBA transitioned right after the OKC run, and then they had Perkins, Young Adams, Ibaka, stuff like Nick Collison, who stayed there forever, all that good stuff. I don't know. That's just. So I thought he carried not a very good team to the playoffs at least a couple times before Paul George got there.
He did. I actually brought Russell Westbrook up in a case the other day because my good friend Mark Tyler, who is, so obsessed with Steph Curry, was, making his case for Steph Curry being, the second greatest point guard of all time behind Magic Johnson. I told him it was utterly ridiculous.
Ray's gonna have a heart attack over here.
Yeah,
Elizabeth,
Ray's
I'm coming
freaking out.
I'm coming to you.
He's freaking out.
And I said, well, if he's the second greatest point guard of all time, that probably puts him, top 10 all-time player in history. Why can't he carry a team to the playoffs without Kevin Durant and or another superstar, which he can't do apparently. And he's like, nobody does that. And I was like, it happens all the time. LeBron James did it, but we're not saying he's LeBron James. But then I was like, but Russell Westbrook did it, and we're not saying he's the second greatest point guard of all time. And he did. He carried a team to the playoffs that wasn't very good, all by himself.
He did it twice. He did 2 years.
Yeah, I think
I was about to say
He did 2 years in a row, I think, before George got there.
And the other thing I will give Russell Westbrook is he plays every single game with an unmatched intensity.
He plays hard as hell.
Yeah, he does. He gives it everything he's got.
And when the first year Durant was gone and playing with Golden State, I rooted so hard for Russell Westbrook and the Thunder every time they played. I watched that game where they always show where those two came in half court and they're yelling at each other. I was watching that game, and I was rooting for Russell Westbrook so hard because I was so pissed off at Kevin Durant at that point. Oh, my goodness.
And you just hated the Warriors, too. I mean,
I do hate the Warriors. But,
Alex just have a deep hatred for the Warriors.
I do dislike the Warriors a lot, but that just made it. We're going to get into some of this because this shit's going to come up in the Curry and Durant episodes.
oh, yeah.
But what I really wanted to get at here was, what do we do with guys playing right now? Because stats are inflated across the board. Everybody is doing this now. Not necessarily averaging a triple-double every season, but everybody's stats are up all over the board. Pace is up all around the NBA. I mean, at this point, yeah, LeBron's going to break the all-time scoring record. we might have it broke 3 or 4 more times in our lifetime, and we haven't seen it broken in how long now?
I mean, if
30,
Luka,
40 years?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been a long time.
if Luka, like you said, stays healthy, he might break multiple records.
Luka will be statistically the greatest player of all time if he can do this for 12 years. Like, he's just going to start destroying things.
Well, I saw a stat the other day. This doesn't help Russell Westbrook, but it does a lot of other players. I'm trying to think, from starting in 1991 or 1990-91 season going to 2000, NBA teams averaged 7 3-point attempts a game. Nowadays, the current average for an NBA team is 35.
3 points are going crazy.
So it's
Steph Curry shoots 12 a game by himself.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh
He
yeah.
just chucks.
oh yeah.
I mean, James Harden shot 13 a game last year. I mean, now he's probably not shooting that because he's playing with a bunch of other guys.
He's found a new role.
And he's a point guard now, an actual point guard.
I'm interested.
We'll talk about that.
That episode's coming up.
Oh yeah,
very soon.
Me and
But
Wade
we,
are ready.
we bashed Harden pretty good during the Harden trade episode,
Mhm.
and now he looks like a completely different player that none of us saw coming. We're all
No.
like, they can't exist. There's not enough balls to go around, and now they're over there being all nicey nice with each other and playing really well.
Harden has surprised me. He really has.
He's
Been willing to change and do what it takes to win.
he's a passing machine right now.
Yeah.
Say the other night he had 15, 15, and 15. First best player ever did it.
But this era, I mean, I hate to bring it up, but it's almost like talking about the '60s.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's kind
It's
of
going back.
The crazy part is the pace of play in the 60s is still way above what it is now. That's
No,
the
it
insane
is.
part.
It is. But here's the other thing, is they've taken all physicality out of basketball. They've changed a whole bunch of rules to cater to the offense. And we're sitting here going, man, how come guys are able to play longer?
You don't touch each other.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because-
you're not getting killed every time you get on the lane.
There is literally a rule they brought in, 3 years ago, called the freedom of movement rule.
Mhm.
You can't touch players, even touch them with your hands on the perimeter, because they have to be able to freely roam around to catch the ball.
Yeah. I mean, here's what helps me with some of the players that we have on our list that are still playing. Usually the ones that have been in the league for a while, like LeBron, Westbrook, Durant. They've all at least played long enough to where we saw them be a dominant player 10 years ago. Before, yes, the NBA was still softer than it was in the 90s and 80s, but not to the degree it is now. Like, there's been a lot of rule changes in the past 10 years. Like you said, you really can't touch people. They were at least dominant players 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when there weren't as many rules, and you still could hit and push a little bit. They at least let you do it in the playoffs. You still got hit in the lane. You were allowed to touch people on the perimeter. That kind of helps me with some of these players. Like, we saw them at least in a little bit of a rougher state of the NBA. Still dominate. Still almost put up the same exact stats. So that helps me a little bit with some of them anyway.
We did. But at this point, when we're talking about the top 50, a lot of it has to do with how long you can stay great. Because the reason a lot of guys are left off lists, T-Mac, Pistol P, guys like that, they were great. We can't deny their greatness. But they were only great for a period of time. A shorter period of time. Would if you played in a different, and again, you're going to get a whole lot of okay, boomer, or oh yeah, a bunch of ridiculousness from NBA fans because apparently, if you believe what you see on the internet today, that the hand check didn't matter at all. The hand check didn't do anything for NBA players, and the physicality of the '80s didn't change anything. So why do you keep bringing it up in arguments? Which I don't believe at all. But not just that. They put a restricted area under the lane so we can get better dunking. The freedom of movement rule changes everything. The hand check does change things. If I am always attached to you, it is harder for you to get away from me. It is harder for you guys to do anything to me, and it's for damn sure harder for you to get away from me without a screen. There's a reason the greatest point guard of all time, or at least I think all of us think he's the greatest point guard of all time, Magic Johnson, dribbled with his back to his defender. It's because they had their hand in his hip. And if he turned around, try and dribble facing someone while their hand is on your hip.
Yeah.
It completely changes what you can do. Because, guys, there was no crossover during that time. Nobody did a crossover. Nobody knew what the hell a crossover was because nobody could do it because their hand was in the way. I have a hold of you. And guess what? Somebody like jump shooters didn't exist as much because first off, the first thing to get tired when people beat on you is your legs. And second off, if I have a hold of your hip and you try and rise up and shoot in my face, I'm going to push you. Not shove you across the court so I get a big foul call. But try and shoot your jump shot when I just do this to your hip. It's not going in.
Alex was making a very generous hand motion with his hand to illustrate a
It was
pushing motion.
It was great radio, wasn't it?
So
I
I just wanted to let all the listeners know what was happening.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate that.
No problem.
I think
It probably was not a good illustration.
He's going
I think
push in the air.
I think another big one that gets ignored a lot, which I think this one's been around for a little while now, but it's sometime in the 2000s, I believe, was the defensive 3 seconds. You couldn't have someone sit there and just protect the
You can't
paint,
just have your big guy camp there.
which is what happened for, 50, 60 years? Your big guy was going to camp out in the paint, and you're going to get hit every time he went in there. Now he has to stand there, run away, come back, run away.
Or just guard the other center at the 3-point line because now
Well,
centers are chucking threes.
Now you're correct, yes. But, I mean,
Well,
that's
the other thing. If you are a good player, like let's just say James Harden, for instance, but it could be anybody. I run an isolation. All 4 of my teammates are standing in 3-point land. So therefore, their defenders are in 3-point land. All I have to do is take one guy off the dribble, which most dominant NBA scorers can do, and then I have a wide open layup because there's no shot blocker because he's standing in 3-point lane guarding a 37% 3-point shooting center. Like,
Very true.
there is no denying it's easier to score in today's NBA, which also means it's probably easier to pass in today's NBA because it's all wide open. And if the guy does crash down and try and block my shot, all I have to do is kick it over to the guy he just left in the corner for a 3. Again, I sound like the old guy shaking his fist at a cloud. I get it.
No, I totally agree with you on that one. I'm on the same plane as you are.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a big change in the NBA. I don't know where it's going to end. Whether it'll cycle back around and we'll have a team like the Piston Bad Boys that'll come out of nowhere and defy the league, or whether it's just going to keep going.
Well, there are people saying that people are starting to really dislike the way the game is played right now, and I believe viewership is down. Am I wrong on that?
Viewership's been down for a couple
Yeah.
seasons.
People are getting disgusted with the way the NBA's played. I mean, I think we've talked about Trae Young on this, jumping backwards into people away from the hoop to get fouls, and they give it to him. I mean, I think if it gets bad enough, they'll have to change it in order to get viewers back. But I don't know when that'll be.
I'll tell you, this is my hope, is that the emergence of the superstardom of Jokic and Embiid will bring the big man back.
Yeah.
And that'll go a long way towards making it look like basketball again. I'm not saying I need a guy with 25 post touches a game. I'm not saying we got to bring back the 90s per se with Olajuwon and Robinson and Ewing and all these guys just getting all these post touches. But every game looks exactly the same right now. All 5 guys sit around the 3-point line, and we just chuck. I mean, we just talked about Russell Westbrook. Hey, I'm going to shoot 6 threes tonight, even though I'm shooting 28% from 3.
Well, is part of that just because he plays right now? I mean, everyone does it. I mean, to stay on the floor, they're going to make you shoot threes.
I mean, maybe.
I mean,
but the best portion we've seen him have, or best portion of a season we've seen him have, was the second half of the season before the cancellation last year when Houston told him he couldn't shoot threes anymore.
Yeah, and he was just, no, I'm not. He's a bad 3-point shooter. I agree. And yeah, because he was his specialty is driving. I mean, he's an athletic machine.
He might be the most athletic freak we've ever seen in the NBA.
If he was like 6'8", the man would be unstoppable.
Right, he'd be LeBron if he was 6'8".
Yeah, I mean him and
It's really a good comparison. Yeah.
Him and Derrick Rose, prime Derrick Rose, are two of the most athletic point guards we've. Well, they probably are the two most athletic point guards we've ever seen. I'll probably say that without really. Yeah, those two. But I mean, yeah. So like going to the basket is, and like you said, with the floor being spread, especially in Houston, it was wide open. So he just went to town, and I think he actually got a lot more efficient in that second half of the season. But yeah.
And then, like you said, he got COVID.
Yeah, the bubble was a disaster.
Yeah. I know we got away from Westbrook there for a minute. We were kind of just talking about the state of current basketball.
But it relates. I mean, it relates to why we have some of the opinions we have about Russell, because he started in, several years ago, and the game of basketball is evolving, and it does affect. We're going to see more people like this. They're going to stat hunt, and they're going to have some amazing stats compared to some we've seen in the past, and we have to talk about what we're going to do with it.
Well, I mean, like I hit on earlier, Jason Kidd was known as this phenomenal all-around point guard, and he got all these triple doubles as a point guard. And I'm trying to think of a good example, but like compared to, like there are going to be players now that get as many triple doubles in like year 5 as he did in like year 15, just because of the way the NBA's played.
I think by the end of this season, Luka Doncic will be like third all time in triple doubles. It's like his third year in the NBA.
Yeah, but yeah, it is tricky.
Well, this is the way I look at it. I look at it like quarterbacks in the NFL. Just because Joe Flacco plays today, he's really high on the all-time passing list. But do I really think he's better than Joe Montana?
I mean, Eli Manning's top 10 in yards and touchdowns. And you could sit there and look at half of his career and say, God, he was a terrible quarterback. Throwing like 23 interceptions. I think he led the league in interceptions like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, he was throwing 20-something interceptions a season for a while.
Yeah.
But it's because they play in today's game with today's offensive rules, where we have to throw the ball 40 times a game or you're being inefficient. It's again goes back to analytics. Running the ball is inefficient. And not shooting threes is inefficient. And these are the rules we're playing by in today's sports. And you're looked at as an idiot if you don't follow analytics. But at the same time, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like current NBA very much. I mean, I watch it. I'm a big fan. I watch a lot of NBA games, but it pisses me off. And while Harden was in Houston, I just refused to watch Houston games after a while because I was like, this irritates me. I can't even watch it anymore.
Oh, yeah. James Harden drove me crazy in Houston. I hated to watch it.
And the NFL can get that way at times, too. I remember in the Super Bowl that we just had. I'm sitting there going, why won't Kansas City run the ball? Every time he touches it, he gets 9 yards. Well, that's inefficient. Just give the ball to Patrick Mahomes and let him win the game. Well, that's not working. Maybe we should run the ball some. Maybe we should take some pressure off Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, obviously it's not working when you're down 31-9. I mean, maybe we should change something up.
I mean, yeah. They're good.
No, I was just going to say, back to my original point, though, is Joe Flacco is not better than Joe Montana because he threw the ball 40 times a game and Montana threw the ball 25 times a game. Yes, he's going to rack up more career stats than Joe Montana, but I don't think anybody in this room believes he was better than Joe Montana.
No.
But I kind of look like a lot of today's, not a lot, we all give LeBron his due. We all think LeBron's an all-time great.
Yeah, as much as I hate him.
Yeah, I'm not a big LeBron guy either, but we all think LeBron's an all-time great. We all think KD's an all-time great. We all have current players on our list. It's not like we just ignored this era, although Wade has quite a bit more than the rest of us. which surprised
Wade's
me.
just a modern man.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's hard to compare stats. Like, if let's just use this for an instance. If we're going to compare to like what's widely considered the two greatest small forwards of all time, LeBron and Larry. Well, LeBron plays today, which comes with a whole bunch of benefits, but also LeBron's like number 4 all time in usage rate. Larry's 69th because Larry actually played small forward. He didn't bring the ball to the floor every time. He didn't have the ball in his hands every time. Dennis Johnson actually brought the ball to the floor, or Tiny Archibald before that. And they ran an offense, and Larry was part of that. He wasn't the offense. We're talking about all these 30 usage rate seasons or 40 usage rate seasons for Harden and Westbrook. Larry's usage rate seasons are all mid-20s. They don't rise up with some of these guys. Point being, it's hard to talk about this. If I'm going to say, man, well, Allen Iverson scored more points than Steve Nash. Of course he did. He shot 30 times tonight. Steve Nash is a 50, 40, 90 guy. Steve Nash was shooting very, very high from the field. He just shot the ball 12 times a night. It's just comparing different things is what I'm saying. It's just hard to look at it and go, I don't know what to take from this, because are we expected to believe that there are like 40 guys in the current NBA that are better than almost everybody ever? Because that's really what we're looking at statistically. We're like, hey, guys, the top 30 guys currently in the NBA are just better than everybody that's ever played, other than maybe Mike and Larry and Magic and Kareem. Everybody else in the NBA, they're better than everybody else ever. Because that's what we're looking at statistically.
Well, they need to all go to rehab for that one because they're on something really good.
Well, to kind of prove your point, I mean, Trae Young, by certain people, is considered I shouldn't say not good, but I don't really think he's that good. But
I'm not impressed.
But he's averaging like 30 and 10, almost. Like, literally, really. But
no, you're not lying. He is.
Yeah, but people don't realize, he's shooting the ball 20 sometimes a game, has a crazy high usage rate, is like the worst defender in the NBA.
Literally.
I mean, I know. He's like the third worst or something like that.
And if Atlanta makes the playoffs, they're just going to put him in a pick and roll
Every
and make them
time.
switch on to their score on every play and go at it.
And that stays NBA, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Every time LeBron plays Steph Curry, what do he do?
Yeah.
They did a pick and roll to get Steph Curry on LeBron. But I mean, and Steph Curry's not a great defender, and he's better than Trae Young. Like, that's the sad
Definitely.
part by quite a bit. Like, that's the sad part.
Well, the thing is, Trae Young is a poor defender, as in that he's giving 100% effort. He has limitations because he's like 5'10" and not big. Like, he's not a physical presence, so he's not going to be a great defender no matter what he does. But then he just goes on offense and thinks he's James Harden. And it's like, ole. And, is like running out on the break, like, hey, throw me the ball.
Yeah. Then his team wins 29 games, and they get the number 3 pick in the draft, and they still suck every year.
Yeah.
It's just, literally. Yeah, it's just pretty much
But,
what keeps going on.
I mean, we literally said it earlier, but it's not far off. Like, Luka Doncic could just smash all the records. Like, he would be like, I own the record books. I'm Dan fucking Marino.
Yeah, he's kind of like what Wilt was back then. Not the same, obviously not the same player, but an era where stats are inflated, and he's just killing it.
I mean, he's already really, really high on the list for 30-point triple doubles. He's going to just break everything. I don't know. Obviously injuries could happen. I mean, that happens. I mean, really, injuries have slowed Russell Westbrook down at this point. But we're looking at. I don't know. I guess I don't know what to do with it. It's almost like we said with Dolph Shays or Paul Arizin. Like, we have this information, but what we do with it, I'm not so sure.
That's a fair point because I mean, basketball is definitely changing. Having watched it, from the '70s to the '80s to the '90s to now, it's way different game.
All right, well, we seem to be coming up stale here. Do we want to give our closing statements and move on? All right, Ray.
Go ahead, Drew.
Oh, okay.
Always gotta go to Drew.
I always go first, but you know what? That's fine. Well, I've watched Russell Westbrook for his whole career, and I had nothing wrong with you guys putting on him. I probably like Russell Westbrook probably the most out of anyone in here. I got one of his OKC jerseys in there. I wore it for Gus Macker one year, so I mean, I like him probably more, but I just didn't think I don't know. I think of his stats are inflated, and some of it gets helped out by other stuff. So that's my thoughts on old Russ.
Well, with me and Russell Westbrook, I just can't respect this era of basketball, and he makes me mad. Just very upset because nobody wants to compete for a title anymore. It's let's just get the stat book, ramped up, and then we'll chill on an island for $30 million a year, and then if it comes to it, we'll just if the chance comes, we'll go hit up our boys and we'll make a super team, and that's how it's going to go down. And that's how it is with Westbrook. He just kind of floating around, getting these max contracts, and inflating the record book, but he don't want to win no titles. Like he wants to be number one or 1.5. He just can't figure out what he wants to really do. So I mean, I can't put him on my list. I mean, the stats are nice, but he's not doing anything with them. It's just a bunch of gong shots and it's over with. So I mean, that's my view on Russell Westbrook.
Well, I think we'll see a pretty common thread. We heard about it in Dantley's episode a little bit. I don't think Westbrook is Adrian Dantley, but guys that I don't think you can win with bother me. So it's hard for me to put them on my list. And like I said earlier, statistically, Russ stacks up with just about everybody all time. But he's infuriating for me to watch, so I'm sure that did play a role in me not putting him on my list, to be honest with you. I'm sure just my dislike of him puts him down a spot or two. But I will say this. I know Drew said that he really liked him. When I was Drew's age, or maybe a little younger, I might have liked Russell Westbrook because he's exciting. He's flashy. And about twice a night, he's going to try and rip somebody's head off on the way to the rim and just throw down this thunderous dunk that is like, holy shit. And that's exciting. I mean, that's fun to watch.
I would say at like the age of 11 or 12, that's what you want to see in a basketball game.
Absolutely. But his volume shooting, his insistence on shooting a bunch of threes when he's terrible at it, his turnovers, and really his insistence on fighting Kevin Durant for 6 years to be who's number one, and I think cost them maybe a chance to add some titles, which then would force all of us to put Russell Westbrook on our list if he had titles. I mean, he's already got an MVP.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I don't think I brought this up earlier. I think MVP voters showed us what they thought of the triple-double stuff after he, ran away with the MVP when he did it the first time, and then didn't get a single vote the second and third time because they were like, whatever. But anyway, I don't judge you guys for putting Russ on your list because I can see the appeal, but I just couldn't put him on for the reasons I said.
Russell was my number 9 point guard. I had an old guy at 10. We'll talk about him later. But I think maybe it was Wade mentioned earlier, or Alex wanted to. Russell's athleticism. He is so athletic, and I got to admit, I kind of liked some of his athleticism. Now, I think he needed to tone down some of the selfishness? Yeah. be a little more of a work with Durant instead of I'm going to be the boss instead of you. Yeah, I would agree with that. But his athleticism and some of the things he did weren't enough to slide him in at the bottom of my list.
I also had Westbrook at number 9. And honestly, just kind of comparing the bottom of everyone's position list, you can nitpick all of them. There's going to be that's the reason they're at the bottom of our list because the great ones had things that they did a lot better. But he's also done things that none of them have ever done, which I think is pretty impressive. Error, usage rate does factor in, but it's still impressive in my opinion. And like to a certain extent, you can even take 20% of his stats away, and he's still going to beat other point guards in stats in certain situations. I mean, he's a freak. But he is my number 9. He obviously has never won. He does have an MVP. He's got scoring titles and assist titles, and yeah, I thought he was worthy of at least one of the lower slots, at least. But that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, that wraps up the Russell Westbrook portion of this episode, and we will move into trivia. So, does anybody have a question ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's go, Drew.
Dirk Nowitzki. He did. Oh shoot! Let me figure out how to word this. I don't have the question up. He's the only player to do what in the NBA?
Like ever?
Yeah,
Just-
ever. Mm-hmm.
Like is this
In one season. He's the only player to do this in one season. I'll give you a hint. It's 2 things. You have to write 2 things down.
I'm completely befuddled.
Yeah.
He's the only player to wear a headband.
Can you give us a little clue as to
It's. I'm not gonna say one of them is not a stat. One of them is a stat, and one of them is something else. That's I don't want to give it away, but he's.
Ouch.
I'm not even sure how to go about this.
Say one is a stat, and the other thing is something else.
Ooh.
When I'm talking stat, I'm talking assists, block, points, assists, rebounds.
All right, then, Drew.
Oh my gosh.
I completely think I'm wrong, but I have an answer.
Yeah.
How's everybody else doing?
I just wrote shit down.
Just trying to find a question.
okay? This is terrible. I'll have something.
Ray, how you doing, buddy? If somebody gets this, I'm gonna give him 2 points. This is ridiculous. That's gonna be my question.
Okay, I'm ready.
I put the only 7-footer to hit 100 threes and win a championship.
Okay. I put 100 threes and 100 blocks.
Okay.
Same season.
I put lead his team in scoring, or in shots, but not in scoring.
And I put score 23 points with a candlestick in the kitchen.
Well, Alex, you were close. He's the first player to do 150 threes and 100 blocks.
Aren't those both stats?
Well, I didn't know if you counted like making.
Oh well, fuck! I put the championship.
That's why I put candlestick.
That was ridiculous.
All right.
I got one. It's actually kind of funny. He brought up Dirk. What is the name of the arena that the Mavericks play in?
Crap.
I felt like I was just watching the Mavericks the other night. Freaking Luka. We were. I was folding clothes and watching the Mavericks play, and I can see the court and everything.
I really don't know.
The only one I can think of is Smoothie King Arena. That's where the new. That's where the Pelicans play at.
Damn it, that was my question.
All right, I got an answer written down.
Okay, what do we all got here? Wait, Ray, are you done?
Apparently not.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
If this is the lead pipe in a different room, I'm gonna be pissed. Okay.
I put Amway.
Okay.
I put AT&T.
I put Dirk Nowitzki Arena.
I put Cuban as the man arena.
No, it's the American Airlines Arena.
Oh, damn it. Son of a bee.
Oh, I don't think I'm giving out too many points today.
All right, well, I got one. Sticking with our theme of triple doubles tonight, they've gone back. I went to Basketball Reference, and they went back to like the 50s and put triple doubles together to look at this. And the Big O is the leader with 181. Westbrook with 159. Magic with 138. Who with 107 is fourth.
I got mine.
I got mine. I feel like somebody's going to get this.
Yeah, I got
I
mine.
mean, there's a couple
It's
guys
down to
that
like
could be-
2 or 3 people.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I just guessed one of them because I don't know for sure.
You ready? Put LeBron.
I also put LeBron. I put Kid.
But James Harden.
Alex is correct. Jason Kidd. I think LeBron is next.
Oh,
After Kidd. He's right there. He's moving up.
I went with LeBron, Kid, and Larry. Those are the three guys I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, Wade had mentioned Kidd several times tonight, so I thought, oh, somebody's going to get this.
All right, Ray, you or me?
I'll go ahead.
All right.
All right. Question is, who is the first coach in NBA history to lead a team to an under 500 record and win Coach of the Year in the same season?
My question is why?
Exactly. When I read this question, I'm like, okay, we're going to go with this one tonight.
All right, I got an answer.
Yeah.
Purely a guess, though, because I have no idea.
Yeah, mine's
Same here.
I got it. Yes.
All right. Yeah. All ready?
Yeah.
Put Larry Brown.
Donnie Nelson.
Donnie Nelson.
Steve Van Gundy.
All right. All incorrect. The answer is Johnny Kerr. Johnny Kerr coached the expansion Chicago Bulls to a 33-48 record in their inaugural season, earning him the Coach of the Year honors.
I don't know who that is.
Wait, he was the coach of the Bulls.
Yeah.
The
yeah.
inaugural season.
If we're not connected to Michael Jordan, no one gives a shit.
All right, I guess that leaves it to me. What player did the Lakers famously draft twice?
Hmm.
Everybody's dumbfounded. I love it.
Not as much on my question.
I got an
Yours
answer.
wasn't a question.
Mine was a question. I just needed 2 answers.
What is Dirk the only one to do? Oh, okay.
All right, I got to guess.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Is that everybody?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's see him.
I said Mike and
But Divock.
James Worthy.
I put Nick Van Exel.
The correct answer is Elgin Baylor,
Oh.
who was drafted in the 4th round and decided not to come to the NBA, and then they took him number 1 overall.
okay.
I was trying to think foreign.
So after an entire 1 point was given out today, the standings are as follows. Ray with 12, Alex with 18, Doug with 23, Drew with 24, and Wade with 27. We're starting to space out here a little bit, guys. So Wade still holds his 3-point lead, and if we were even out 1 point a week, I'm pretty sure that's safe. But we have plenty of episodes to go. So that being said, that'll wrap up this week's Russell Westbrook episode. Thanks for listening, and please tune in next week for our episode on Chris Webber, who will be defended by Uncle Doug and Drew. So, in other words, Uncle Doug. And
Whoa.
and like I said, we appreciate you listening. Please come back next Thursday for Sports the Nemo Way.